Let's bring in Republican New York Congresswoman Elise Stefanik. She serves as the House Conference Chairwoman. So let's just play out that moment where the protesters started yelling at Kamala Harris, and she did seem to agree with their point. Listen here.
But what about the genocide? What about the genocide?
And I respect your right to speak, but I am speaking right now.
Yeah!
Billions of dollars, so
2,000 people dead, 19,000 children are dead. You gotta call them. 19,000 children are dead. You won't call them.
So, listen, what he's talking about, it's real, and so that's not the subject that I came to discuss today, but it's real, and I respect his voice.
So he said, you won't call it a genocide. And she said, what he's talking about, it's real. What do you make of that?
It's a disgrace. And at every opportunity, Kamala Harris has turned her back on our most precious ally, Israel. And you can see it play out. If you look at polling, Jewish voters are overwhelmingly voting for President Trump, who strongly had Israel's back and arguably, I believe, was the strongest American president we've ever had in history when it comes to our support for Israel, when it comes to the Abraham Accords. But the really, really sad and really concerning, really sick of that statement, John, I would say, is it's Hamas and Hezbollah terrorists who are chanting death to Israel, death to America, who committed atrocities on October 7th, just over a year ago. So what she should have said, what anyone running for president of the United States should have said, is that Israel is our closest ally, our most precious ally, and we strongly stand with them, and we will support them in their efforts to defeat these Iranian-backed terrorists.
I mean, there's suffering on both sides. There's no question about that, but it's Hamas that triggered it and Hamas that continued it as well.
Well, it's also Hamas who's using civilians as civilian shields. It is Hamas. They are the terrorists. They have brutalized their own people, not just the genocide and the atrocities that they have called for and committed against Israelis.
Here's what Michael Oren, the former Israeli ambassador to the United States, said about it. Quote, a very dangerous precedent. I was disturbed to view the video in which Vice President Kamala Harris appears to confirm the charge that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. This is the first time that the White House has been linked to a libel which threatens Israel's legitimacy and security. I call on the U.S. administration to issue an immediate and complete denial. As we said, the Harris campaign walked it back, saying, no, she wasn't agreeing with that, and that Israel does remain our closest ally in the Middle East. But when you take a look at the Biden-Harris administration and how it deals with Israel, you sometimes wonder, well, who do they really support?
Well, they have done everything they can to appease the Iranian regime and, again, turn their back on Israel. Take the U.S. military aid that we passed in a bipartisan basis in Congress to Israel. This administration, with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's support, slow-walked that aid, and they are still doing everything they can to undermine Israel's ability to fight for their own country, to fight for their very existence. This is the most important time in modern history for the U.S. to stand strongly with Israel. So again, Kamala Harris at every opportunity has chosen to turn her back on Israel, to show a lack of support, and even to appease the pro-Hamas talking points. These are the same talking points, John, think about it, that the pro-Hamas agitators are using on college campuses when they're committing anti-Semitic statements and physical assaults against Jewish students. So she is siding with them rather than siding with American principles and American values.
As all of this is going on, now there's this troubling leak from intelligence that was apparently gathered by the National Reconnaissance Office about Israel's preparations to launch a retaliatory strike against Iran. John Kirby was asked about it. Here's what he said earlier. Listen.
We're obviously keenly focused on what happened here, on learning how it happened, and preventing it from happening again. And in the course of that work, that investigative work, we're certainly going to keep our antenna up and our eyes open for any potential future disclosures. But
as we were chatting, as we were listening to Karine Jean-Pierre, you said that you detect a real lack of urgency about this.
There's an absolute lack of urgency. This is very, very serious. It doesn't get more serious than this, particularly, as I said, when Israel is fighting for its very existence and conducting important operations every single day. The fact that this classified information was leaked, not only does it really hurt our credibility with our allies around the world in terms of intelligence sharing, but it also, I'm concerned about the lack of urgency from this administration. And those statements from John Kirby, he didn't say we absolutely are committed to getting to the bottom of it.
So what should happen here?
So there should be an investigation immediately, and him saying we're going to try to prevent this from happening again. This should never happen again. There needs to be taken immediate criminal action, referrals to the Department of Justice, and this person who broke the law by leaking classified information, they should be imprisoned.
To a pro-Iranian outlet.
Correct, to a pro-Iranian outlet. So there needs to be absolute criminal referrals when they get to the bottom of this. But there is a fundamental lack of urgency. This needs to be handled now, immediately, not we're going to try to prevent this from happening again. They should say, we will ensure that this never happens again.
Yeah, I mean, you would think that the American president would say, lock that you-know-what down and make sure it never gets out again.
And hold the individuals accountable.
All right. Congresswoman, good to talk to you. Good to see you in D.C., despite the fact that everybody else is on recess. For the
We're
election.
working hard.
All right. We'll see you again soon.
Thanks.
Now this.